Of hypothesis testing, we saw what was hypothesis. It was a claim or a statement. And we also learned what was the testing and how many types of tests we had: right tail, left tail, and two tail test. And in section 8.1, I also told you how to make the initial conclusion and then state the final conclusion. Okay, so those were the basics. So in this further sections, we will have an example. So you will be given a claim, and from that you have to find out or build up a final conclusion. Okay, so we will have two things to do here. So you will have a claim about a proportion, that is one example, and you will have a claim about a mean. Okay, so we will be doing both the examples today. Okay, so these are the steps which you have to follow in order to reach the final conclusion. Okay, step one is you have to state the null and alternative hypothesis. You know how to do that. And you need to figure out what type of test it is. Is it right tail, left tail, or two tail test? And next, you will be given a level of significance and you need to find the critical value. Okay, after finding out the critical value, you will be calculating the test statistics or TS. You had a table where I showed you the formula. Okay, and this formula is for proportion. Okay, after this, you will have two options. Let's not go into this option one. Okay, we will focus more on the p-value this time. Okay, so once you calculate the critical value and the statistic, you will find out the p-value using p-value method, and you will compare the p-value with alpha. So if your p-value is less than alpha, you're going to reject H naught. If it is not, you will say fail to reject H naught. In other words, you're going to accept it, but you will be saying fail to reject H naught. That will be your initial conclusion. Okay, and about your final conclusion, you have a table here. So depending on the problem and on your initial conclusion, you will be deciding which final conclusion you have to choose. Okay, we have a few examples. We will do that and you will get an idea about this. Okay, so this is the problem given. Now take a minute to read this problem and tell me what is the claim. Okay, now let us do the first step. State the null hypothesis, which is H naught. So what would be the null hypothesis now? Now this is about proportion, right? It is about population proportion, so I'm denoting it by P. So the P value, the proportion is equal to 50%. That is what is given. Or I can take it as decimal. Now, what symbol should I be using here between this? Equal to why? Because it is a null hypothesis. Remember, for null hypothesis, you will be using only equal to sign, no matter what is the problem. Okay. Now, next is alternative hypothesis. Here, you will be saying P 50% or say 0.5. Now, what should be the symbol? Greater than. Greater than why? Because it's mentioned in the problem. The claim is the population proportion is greater than 50%. That's the claim. So you will be saying greater than 0.50. Now, in null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, we know that the claim is greater than 50%. So we will denote a claim here. So I'm telling you that this is the claim according to the question. Okay. Now we are done with this. Now tell me whether it is right or left tail. You have a greater than symbol, right tail. So it is a right tail test. 62%? Yes. So, okay. So here it says 62% of the subjects said they used alcoholic beverages. So that's the given information. Now, if you can concentrate more, to the next line, they are saying that it is greater than 50%. So this will be the claim. This is what we need to find out. This is the given information. This is the claim. They are saying it is not 62%, it is greater than 50%. Okay. So that is what we need to prove here. Okay. Now, next is find the critical value of Z alpha. So now what would be the Z? What would be the alpha here? 0.05. Alpha is equal to 0.05. How? Because 0.05 significance level, right? Alpha is the significance level. So 0.05 significance level will be the alpha. Now, here, when it comes to critical value, it is more often we find the z-score. Now, we had two things. We were used to find out z alpha by 2 or z alpha. Now, which one should I be using here? Z alpha, why? One tail. It's because right tail, that means there is only one tail, so it is only z alpha, not alpha by 2. Okay, that is why we need to find which type of test it is in order to help with this formula. Okay, now you use inverse norm 1 minus 0.05, that will give you 1.645. If it is wrong, tell me. No, it would be positive. Okay, then calculating the test statistic, that would be Z equal to P cap minus P divided by square root of P into Q divided by N. So this was the formula which we learned in section 8.1, P into Q divided by N. So from this, P cap would be, P cap is the sample proportion, P cap 62%, so I will write it as 0.62, and N is equal to sample size 1087. What else do we need? N is there. And Q is equal to 1 minus P. So here P is 0.50. Okay. So using this, you will calculate the Z value. Tell me the value. You have P cap, you have P. You also know how to calculate Q. N is given. Just plug in and find out the answer. Can I have the TI-83 calculator if you have any? 83 or 84? Did I teach you how to calculate the p-value? Right. Okay. Now, okay. So now Z value, you have to get it around 7.91. So you are going to plug this value and calculate P 0.50 divided by 1087, which is equal to 7.91. Okay. So now that we have Z alpha and Z, we will calculate the P value. So I want you to use both the Z values and find out P value. I want you to tell me the answer. Use both Z. Z alpha, CV, and Z test statistic. So you will be using Normalcdf. On your calculator, you'll enter lower, upper. Mean and standard deviation is not given, so you don't have to worry about that. and I'll tell you how to do this in the next class. I'll bring my calculator. I don't have calculator in my personal computer also. Okay, so assuming that p-value is 0.001, so that's through the calculation. So we generally use test statistic and we use normal CDF. Normal CDF. Oh, 7.91 and okay. So since mean and standard deviation is not given, we will not be using 0 and 1. Fine. Now that we have p-value, so we will be comparing this with alpha because this is how we will make a conclusion, right? So p-value I got here is 0.0001 and alpha is 0.05. So you can easily say that p is less than alpha. P is less than alpha. Now, if p is less than alpha, what is the conclusion? If p-value is less than alpha, you're going to reject H naught. Okay, that's your initial conclusion. That's it. Reject or fail to reject H naught. Now, I will write my initial conclusion here. That is reject H naught. Okay, right? Now, I need to write the I need to state my final conclusion. How do I do that? We have a table here. Now, this says if you are going to reject H naught, you have two options. The first two. Now, which one should you choose? Depends on the claim, right? Now, my initial conclusion is reject H naught. I will come to the example here and I will see which is the claim. Claim is H1, right? So go back to the table. So keep this in mind. According to example 1, initial conclusion is reject H naught, rejecting H naught, and claim is on H1. Claim is on H1. Right? Now, this is where you choose the final conclusion. Rejecting H naught, okay. And claim is on H1. So I will go here and I will choose this. This would be my final conclusion. Okay. Rejecting H naught, claim is on H1. So I have to choose this one. Sufficient evidence, so I'm supporting the claim. You're not rejecting the claim, you're supporting the claim. This has to be your final conclusion. So once you figure this out, you just have to put that in a statement. Okay, so supporting the claim. You're going to support the claim and you have enough evidence. Enough evidence. Okay, so we just have to put this in the statement. We'll say there is sufficient evidence to support the claim and what was the claim? Claim was that the majority of adults use alcoholic beverage. Okay, so this is how you have to work on the hypothesis problems. So this is there in your lab 8. So it is more of answering your final conclusion. You will have many problems. So you just have to identify the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and then find the p-value that you will be doing through JMP, plotting the histogram, all those things. You will learn that gradually. So after that, you will be stating your initial conclusion and final conclusion. So you will be doing the same thing in your lab, but instead of a calculator, you will be using a JMP. Okay, and you will have to report it in the same way. Okay, that was your example one. Now I want you to do example two. State null and alternative hypothesis, find the critical value, test statistic, and then you can find the p-value. Okay, so after stating your null and alternative hypothesis, tell me which one will be the claim. Null, right? So this is your claim. And what should be the test, type of test? Two-tailed. Two-tailed test. And you have to calculate z alpha by 2 because it is a two-tailed test. and you will be having two values, plus or minus. How much did you get? Plus or minus 2.57. And what was the test statistic, z value? Did you get this? Minus z 6.51. It's over. Now, while calculating the p-value, use Normalcdf. Now, this time, since it is a two-tailed, you can either use a less than symbol or a greater than symbol. You'll be getting the same value. So let's say I use greater than, and here I put it as 99. Okay. So this also I got 0.001. And after getting your p-value, this wouldn't be your exact p-value because since it is a two-tailed test, you will be multiplying this value, whichever you got, with 2. And that would be 0.0002. It's 29.1%. So 29.1 divided by 100 is 0.291. Right? So usually your claim will be done on the end of your problem. So that means your PCAP will be somewhere in the beginning. This is the tough job actually, to identify the terms. And from there on, it's easy to do. I'm trying to access the notes, but I'm not able to. Okay. So if you want, you can just take a look at this notes. In example 4, so this is how we calculated p-value in section 8.1. So we did for right tail. So we usually take this as a lower number and upper as 9999, and you will get the p-value, right? Now, in the same way, how much did you get p-value? You told me it's 10 to the power of 15, and it was 0.000 something. Okay, got it. Yes. Okay, and for two-tailed test, we calculated Normalcdf, right? And then we double the p-value, whichever we get. That is for two-tailed. Okay, so this is what we did in section 8.1. Now, that's the same thing we are going to do here. So once you get your p-value, this value it is because, as you told me, 1.29 10 to the minus 15th, and that might be the reason I took this. Okay. Now, stating the initial conclusion depends on the p-value and alpha. P is 0.0002, alpha is 0.005001. Now here also it is less than 0.002 is less than 0.01. So what is your initial conclusion? Reject. Reject H naught. Okay, now remember this and we will go back to the table. So we are going to reject H naught, and what is the claim? Claim is in H naught. We are rejecting H naught, claim is also on H naught. So go back to table and let's put it here. Now example 2, it is rejecting H naught and claim is also on H naught. So reject H naught, claim is on H naught. So this will be your final conclusion. Okay, sufficient evidence and you're going to reject the claim. Okay, so you just have to put that in the words here. Going to copy. There is a sufficient evidence, but I'm going to reject the claim. And what was the claim about? There is sufficient evidence to reject the claim that the drug offensive rate is equal to 30%. That was the claim, and this is my final conclusion. Okay, so this was example 2, and example 3 will be the same thing. Okay, it's the same as example 2. You're going to state null and alternative hypothesis, find the critical value, test statistic, p-value. If your p-value is 10 power minus 15th or something to the large number, if it is negative to the large number, then just take it as 0.0001. 0.0001 if it is greater. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Now, usually, now, p-value is what is, it is a area, right? So alpha is also area, p-value is also area. So alpha is related to z-score or to a critical value, whereas p-value, which acts as alpha, is related to test statistic. So whenever you find the p-value, you have to use test statistic. So I was just curious to know what will be the result if we use critical value. So whenever you are calculating p-value, you are going to use test statistic. Whenever you are going to calculate alpha, you will use critical value. Okay, so I will leave this example to you, but I will give you the final answer. So H naught will be equal to 0.10 and H1 is your alternative hypothesis, P is less than 0.10, and that would be the claim here. And this is a left tail test. Left tail test because it is less than. And according to your critical value, your Z alpha, which is 0.05, this value would be minus 1.645. And according to test statistic, it will be Z equal to P cap minus P divided by square root of N into P into Q divided by N. You know what is N, P cap, P. Everything is given. Just substitute that here and we'll get the answer. So N, according to the problem, it is 10, 12. P cap will be 9%, which is 0.09. And Q, for that, let me write P. P is 0.10 and Q will be 1 minus P. Okay, so once you get critical value and test statistic, you will have to find out the P value. You will use normal CDF, use minus 1.60 and 9999, and your P value for this will be 0.1446. So you will be comparing P with alpha. This is 0.1 and your alpha is less. So P is greater than alpha here. So you're going to say fail to reject. That means you're going to accept the null hypothesis. Fail to reject H naught. This will be your initial conclusion. Initial conclusion. And you will check the table here. It is fail to reject. So you'll concentrate only on the second row, fail to reject, and your claim is on what? Your claim is on H1, so fail to reject H1 claim. So this is your final conclusion. There is insufficient evidence to support the claim. That would be your final conclusion. There is insufficient evidence to support the claim. That's it. So that is the end of your section 8.2. Okay, so just I want you all to calculate the one which I told you today. Do it. If it is wrong, just tell me so that I can check whether mine is wrong or yours.